A book of short stories that cross boundaries of race, nation, language, and sexuality to lay bare the foundation of humanity. Love. A quirky Japanese novel about a quirky Japanese woman struggling to fit into the machine of Japanese society by being an exemplary convenience store employee. A repulsive yet intriguing novel which delivers both pleasure and discomfort, the way I imagine it must feel to be strung out on the cocktail of drugs the protagonist spends the majority of the book on. At the end of a singular and extraordinary life, Sidney Poitier entreats us to take risks to create a better world for the coming generations. The celebrated call to equal rights and education by an eminent early feminist that felt a lot like homework, necessary and educational, but an effort to get through. A riveting murder mystery set in a small Australian town that opened my eyes to how serious drought can be. Please consider making a donation to the Australian bushfire effort. A somewhat convoluted first book in a series that was less about solving a murder mystery in an African tea shop and more about exposition for all the wacky characters and events that took place before said murder. An absolutely amazing follow-up to Nevermore, which continues the adventures of Morgan Crow as she uses her tremendous and terrible talent to navigate her first year at the Wonder Society. I wasn't expecting so much misogyny, but I should have expected this much misogyny. Skip! A character-driven novel set in Australia, France, and Sri Lanka that took my expectations and subverted them as I lost myself among its many vibrant layers. An inspirational memoir about a new teacher's courage and resilience as she takes charge of a grade 5 class in Chicago. A 490-page sprawling epic which demonstrates how the French, the Iroquois, and the Hurons survived against and with each other in the early days of Canada's history. How were the women and children of South Korea affected by the authoritarian state and uprisings of the 80s is the central question in these 8 short stories authored by South Korean women and published in the late 90s. Part educational history of Pakistan, part inspirational memoir of Malala Yousafzai, and all-powerful nonfiction. A middle-class white woman who married amid the early feminist idealism of the 1970s realizes how little she has to offer the world beyond a needy husband and distant children. Poetry proves the best form to express rage, indignation, and despair at losing custody of one's children because the state in 1989 doesn't recognize lesbians as mothers. An entirely bingeable gay romantic tragicomedy that goes around the world at a frenetic pace. Amani al-Khattab's life was altered forever on 9/11. And she's pissed that media representation for Muslim women hasn't improved since then. A 179-page love story about 2 elderly people that doesn't break any narrative or literary ground, but is sweet and endearing nonetheless. I bought this book in Canada, then took it to South Korea, and finally read it on vacation in Hong Kong, so this book has been places, unlike Britt Marie, who dislikes travel but learns to open her mind and heart to new adventures. Probably a quarter of this book's material is found in the endnotes. Brian Markham was the first person to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean from east to west at the age of 34, and everyone should know this. Also, the story of this book's publication and reprinting is a saga in itself. Hollywood, get on this. Either something was lost in translation here, or I just can't connect to a man trying to get over his ex in 1985 Portugal. A semi-autobiographical novel about an educated German man trying to navigate the fog of trauma, depression, and drug addiction in post-World War II Berlin. Despite having qualms about the author's relationship to the subject matter, there were moments where I felt a deep affinity with the soul-searching protagonist's quest from Geneva. I just wish it hadn't ended in a cliché. I haven't felt this alienated from a piece of literature since I read Junot Diaz's The Brief and Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde. It took me 6 months to get through this short novel, but I think I'm a better person now. General events and orders of a dark time in Canadian history are made intimate and visceral in this Japanese-Canadian's family memoir. I wasn't expecting this much. Oh, I already used that joke. Oh, this one is also racist. I'd say skip if it wasn't a pillar of modern science fiction. When our protagonist called the love of his life a slut in the first book just for following the dystopian world rules, I should have followed my first instinct and thrown this book against the wall. Alas, I am terrible at following my first instincts. Skip, skip, skip. A right bloody riot of a memoir that I cannot recommend enough. A cautionary tale about what happens when an educated white man tries to play God. Did you know 929 people were fatally shot by the police in the USA last year? Read this book. One American's epic quest to drink beer and eat poutine in as many Canadian cities as possible in order to relay his cultural findings to his fellow Americans in book form. Comedy legend Eddie Izzard encourages readers to take risks and fail in his witty memoir. Did you know Guy Lafleur made an album in which he gives instructions for playing hockey over French disco music? Now you know!